Welcome back to Triple S Breakdowns. Today we're breaking down Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Let's begin. Point number 1, based Doug just not giving a shit and trying to steal Kong's food. What is a king to a Doug? Point number 2, oh damn, well, Skilla's dead. Was she the last of her species and now they're just extinct? I wonder if she has any eggs somewhere. I mean, I kinda hope so. The idea of Godzilla making a species extinct just doesn't sit right with me for some reason. In the official novelization for this movie, we actually hear Hampton and Eileen's thoughts on the Skilla-Godzilla fight and why they think Godzilla chose to just execute Skilla. Maybe because Skilla was negatively affecting the climate globally, or maybe for Godzilla it's you only get one strike, 2 strikes and you're dead, son. Or maybe it's because Godzilla is already sensing that something big is about to happen, that Scar King and Shimo would soon be a problem, so he made an example of Skilla to make sure the other Titans don't try anything whilst he deals with them. Point number 3, no one knows why Godzilla killed Skilla, but I can tell you that the graphic prequel novel Godzilla x Kong: The Hunted gives us the reason why Skilla decided to go on a rampage. Raymond Martin, who lost his family when the building they were in was destroyed by the female Muto during Godzilla 2014, has made himself a mech that he uses in the Hollow Earth to quote-unquote hunt Titans. To make sure Godzilla doesn't come after him like he came after Walter Simmons and Mechagodzilla, Raymond sets off decoys at various locations across the world to lure Godzilla away so that he can go hunting in Hollow Earth without being disturbed. These decoys though didn't just lure Godzilla but also Skilla, and Godzilla chased Skilla all over the world before finally catching up to her and killing her in Rome. Raymond does get his comeuppance though, just not at the hands of Godzilla. After killing a spine prowler, Raymond then goes after her cubs, only to be attacked by Kong. After a brief fistfight, Kong throws the mech off a cliff, destroying it. Raymond, however, survived the fall and his mech's destruction, but when he climbs out of the wreckage, he comes face to face with the Spine Prowler's cubs, who put an end to the Titan murderer. Point number 4, so yeah, if you didn't already know, those shifting storm patterns that wiped out the Iwi on Skull Island, except for Gia, they were actually caused by King Ghidorah during Godzilla King of the Monsters. Point number 5, this Godzilla graffiti was designed by Christian Gonzalez and is chock full of Easter eggs which he highlights in this post from his Instagram, Seaguns. Going from left to right, we have the words "Save the Earth" with 2 red eyes, which is a reference to the kaiju Ghidorah. Christian has also included the message in loving memory of Yoshimitsu Banno, who is a Japanese film director who directed and co-wrote Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. Then we have the words "No more, I'm sick of Godzilla," which is a line from the character Mr. Tako in the English dub of the 1962 film King Kong vs. Godzilla.
No more! I'm sick of Godzilla!
Next row down we have Knifehead, a kaiju from the movie Pacific Rim, Skeleturtle from the 1964 film Mothra vs. Godzilla, and the Flying Saucer is a Zillion Flying Saucer from the 1965 movie Invasion of the Astro Monster. The yellow lightning coming out of it might be a reference as well to the fact that the Zillions were able to control Ghidorah, who they called Monster Zero. Next row down, the flying arm with the words "punch punch punch" is a reference to Jet Jaguar from the 1973 film Godzilla vs. Megalon. The blue cross in a blue circle is Mothra's symbol, and the face with the jagged mouth on Godzilla's tail is a reference to Shin Godzilla. The lower row of references are hard to see using what we see of the graffiti in the movie, but if we use the full graffiti design from the Godzilla x Kong art book, we can see them more clearly. First, the pink and blue faces are of the monster of strict mothers Mamagon and the monster of homework Shakura, creatures designed by manga artist Gengo Kotaka in the 1972 movie Godzilla vs. Gigan. Next, the words "Mike's Monsters" is a reference to artist Mike Monahan, who does cinematic photography using toys from various franchises such as Godzilla, Alien, Predator, and more, which you can see on his Instagram, mikes.monsters. Lastly, the blue symbol next to Skeleturtle is Christian's own logo, which is a stylization of his initials C and G, plus the teeth being an M to represent his middle initial, that he calls the Sig Snake. The full graffiti design shows us other symbols and writing that didn't appear in the movie, and so we don't have an explanation for their meaning from Christian. I've been able to figure out a few of them, but not all. For the ones I definitely know, the words Red Bamboo is a reference to the terrorist organization The Red Bamboo from the 1966 film Ibira Horror of the Deep, and banana oil is a reference to a line from Shoichi Tsukioka in the English dub of the 1955 film Godzilla Raids Again.
Ah, banana oil.
Next, for the ones that I think I know but I'm not too sure about, is this red symbol. To me it looks a lot like the brand of sacrifice from Berserk, but why it would be included in this graffiti of Godzilla and other kaiju references, I don't know. Then on the right side we have a purple cool S symbol, which I'm very familiar with. Whether it's been included because it's a popular graffiti symbol or because it's a reference to something Godzilla related, again, I don't know. Finally, we have the ones that I just have no idea about. Redo Squad, C loves S, and the red, yellow and blue flowers. If any of you knows what these could be a reference to, let me know in the comments below. Point number 6. So the entire reason they gave Kong a rotting tooth was to introduce the character of Trapper. Not to say I don't like Trapper, I do. I enjoy eccentric characters, and having two, Trapper and Bernie, bouncing off each other throughout this movie I found to be really funny. It's just when I saw in promotional material that Kong at some point would both get a power fist and a metal tooth, I came up with an idea of why and how that would happen, which unfortunately didn't end up happening, but I wish did. I'm getting ahead of myself though, I'll get into my idea later on in the video. Point number 7, French people scanning for radiation at a Godzilla footprint got me thinking of the 1998 Godzilla movie, which I loved watching as a kid, so don't be coming at me calling it a bad movie. Point number 8, the novelization of the movie reveals that Scar King wasn't alone when the outpost got destroyed. He actually brought along with him a bunch of his red stripes, including Suko, who he had just made a red stripe before heading up to the surface of the Hollow Earth, which is a weird way to describe how they went from the deeper cave up to essentially the big main cave that is Hollow Earth. I don't know how much I like the idea of other apes accompanying Scar King out of the deeper cave, since when the other apes learn that they can just leave the deeper cave to a much bigger, better world, what's stopping them from just sneaking out and disappearing? I mean, sure, Scar King could send out other apes to find and bring them back, or head out himself on Shimo, but Hollow Earth is big.
Really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is.
The chances of finding the renegade apes is slim to none. I think I preferred it when I assumed that Scar King kept the opening to the Hollow Earth surface a secret to ensure his ape slaves didn't get any ideas of trying to escape. Point number 9, this moment of Kong swinging Suko around, smacking him into the other apes, then throwing him at one eye, is the single funniest thing I've ever seen in the Monsterverse, period. Point number 10, fun fact about Suko, he is 149 feet tall, according to the Warner Brothers Entertainment Instagram, which is actually taller than Kong was in Kong Skull Island, where he was only 104 feet tall, according to KongSkullIslandMovie.com. Now, just imagine this Kong swinging around his younger self and throwing him. Point number 11, poor Tiamat getting told to leave home by Godzilla, and when she refused, he chose to just murder her. Though it could make sense he chose to kill her rather than just defeat her, since he'd already fought and defeated her before in the Pacific according to the novelization. So you know it could just be the 2 strikes and you're out thing again. Point number 12, what actually happened during the war between the great apes and the great lizards still kinda confuses me, but I think I figured most of it out. Maybe. The novelization of Godzilla vs. Kong has Gia tell her mother about a story she was told when she was young. Zos La Halawa, he lived in the long ago below like Kong, like us. He ate a star there and it made him evil. He could throw rays of star out of his mouth and burn things, so it was decided he could not live in the long ago below. Iwi and Kong made bonds of friendship, became one people, to fight Zos La Halawa. They fought for a long time, trying to make him leave. Something went wrong, I think. Someone broke a taboo, maybe. Anyway, Kong and Iwi travelled together in darkness until we reached the light of this place. We left all of the bad people behind and the Zos La Halawa with his stomach star too. Now that sounds like it's saying the Great Titan War actually involved the great apes and only Godzilla, no other great lizards. But then later Eileen says to Gia, I think that long ago the creatures you call Zos La Halawa and the family of Kong fought a war. So Zos La Halawa actually refers to Godzilla's species, not just Godzilla himself, and by family of Kong, Eileen is referring to all the great apes, not just specifically those related to Kong. Now you may be thinking that the Great Titan War and the war between Godzilla and Scar King and his armies are 2 separate events, but I've been told and seen time and time again that the 2 events are actually one and the same. Consider maybe, just maybe, for a long time the great lizards didn't have atomic breath, but then they encountered something in the Hollow Earth that gave them all that ability. This could have been instantaneously or happened over a period of time, who knows. In any case, the great lizards, now possessing this amazingly destructive capability, led the great apes to try to evict all the great lizards from Hollow Earth. And who led the great apes in trying to do this? Well, none other than the old Scar King himself. So the apes and the lizards started fighting, with the iwi fighting on the side of the apes, though maybe since we see a temple dedicated to Godzilla in Godzilla King of the Monsters, there may have also been Hollow Earth humans fighting on the side of the lizards as well. Now this taboo being broken that Gia mentions, I'm not sure what that could be, though I bet it has something to do with the Scar King. Maybe it was a Dawn of the Planet of the Apes style situation, and like Cobra, Scar King broke the rule of ape not kill ape or something. In any case, this taboo breaking led the Kong clan and as many iwi as they could carry to flee the war and Hollow Earth and make a new home on Skull Island. Meanwhile, the war had left both sides with heavy casualties, explaining why Godzilla almost died when he managed to trap Scar King and what was left of his army in a deeper part of the Hollow Earth. Maybe Godzilla had decided to take them on alone, or maybe he initially fought alongside other great lizards, but they fell in battle. Think of it like Ned Stark and his homeboys taking on Arthur Dane and Gerald Hightower. They had the numbers at first, but then they eventually fell one by one, leaving only Ned Stark, or in this case Godzilla, left standing. We'll just ignore Howland Reed, he doesn't play into this analogy. I know as well some will point out that the great lizards need to have always possessed atomic breath, because that's the reason why the Mutos go after the great lizards, to plant their eggs into the lizard bodies so they can feed off the radiation inside. But I think the answer could be that it's not that the great lizards need to have always had atomic breath, it's just that they always had to have been radioactive. So yeah, I think the great lizards have always been able to absorb radiation and store it in their bodies. It's just them being able to eject it out of their mouths as a beam of death isn't something they could always do. They either developed that ability naturally or gained it unnaturally from something in the Hollow Earth. Point number 13. When I first saw the Scar King in trailers and saw his eyes, I thought their sheen looked a lot like the glow of the Hollow Earth crystals, which then made me think Scar King might have gained some sort of power from the crystals, like psychic powers of some kind, which would allow him to go up against the likes of Godzilla and stand a chance. Another theory I had, based on his eyes having a crystal sheen, was that he might have actually been under the control of the Hollow Earth humans who lived amongst the crystal pyramids, which I think would have been a cool callback to people being able to control the monsters from the classic Godzilla films, but rather than it being alien people, it was Hollow Earth people. And these Hollow Earth humans had actually been imprisoned along with Scar King and other giant apes by Godzilla during the Great Titan War, and them sending out a signal wasn't them calling for help, but them luring Godzilla into Hollow Earth to be killed by them and Scar King. Point number 14. Shimo, my beautiful Ice Queen, you have been the cause of so many arguments in the Monsterverse community just by existing. The biggest argument being, did Shimo freeze Ghidorah in Antarctica, and also did she do it on purpose or not? Well, I actually did a lot of research into various topics ranging from ice ages to when modern humans first migrated out of Africa, and my findings and conclusions ended up being 4 pages long. So as not to just ruin the flow of this video by spending like 10 minutes talking about dates and locations and how they do or don't match up, all I'll say is Shimo started the last ice age, the Quaternary Glaciation, 2.58 million years ago, but her helping Godzilla freeze Ghidorah in Antarctica happened less than 50,000 years ago, which would also mean Shimo wasn't part of the Scar King's army during the Great Titan War, but was subjugated by Scar King after him and his apes had already been trapped by Godzilla in a deeper area of Hollow Earth. If you want to know how I figured all this out, you can check out my in-depth research and analysis video on my second channel, Triple S Variety channel. Links will be in the iCard and in the description. The only question left now though is, why did Shimo decide to head not just down into the Hollow Earth, but all the way down into the subterranean area Scar King and his army were trapped in? Did Godzilla force her down there? Did she just decide to go down there by herself? Or was she chilling out in Hollow Earth, then fell into a sinkhole which led to the subterranean area and she couldn't get back out? In any case, I guess whatever hole Shimo went into to get to the subterranean realm, Scar King and his army couldn't use to escape it. Maybe it filled in behind her or was too high up for the apes to reach. Though why Shimo couldn't just frozone her way up out of the hole with Scar King on her back, I don't know. Point number 15. So this crystal that Scar King uses to control Shimo, we never find out why it can control her nor where it comes from. However, in the novelization, it suggested that the crystal actually came from Shimo herself. Point number 16. How can it be in any way comfortable for Scar King to ride on Shimo? Like, he can't even sit down properly or else he get a spike up the bum, so he just has to balance as she rocks back and forth. off, I'd get so nauseated and my legs would get so tired so fast. Point number 17, Pink Godzilla rises! And this isn't the first time Godzilla has had pink/purple dorsal spikes. He sported this colour way back when in the films Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla vs Megaguirus. So all the morons crying, they made Godzilla woke by making him pink. You can now laugh and throw this fact in their ugly faces that he's been pink before. Point number 18, this blueprint of the Project Powerhouse arm looks very similar to the arm of the Jaeger Gypsy Danger from Pacific Rim. Point number 19, so yeah, from this point on in the film, I'm not that big a fan of the dialogue as it just becomes really expository.
Where's he going?
Godzilla won't come down here unless Kong brings him.
Okay, the last time those two met up, it was almost the end of Kong.
He's taking a hell of a risk. Kong invades his turf, could start a war.
Yeah, that's a suicide mission.
But if Kong draws Godzilla down here, they can make their stand in Hollow Earth, and there's a chance that Godzilla can stop Scar King and Shimo from reaching the surface.
Absolutely certain that she can pull this off, right?
It's why Gia was called here. Only an Iwi from Skull Island can awaken Mothra. And Mothra is the key to Godzilla protecting this place and its pathways to the surface.
Just directly spelling out to the audience exactly what's happening? Disappointing. Point number 20, now let's go back to my idea for how Kong ended up with a metal tooth and using a power fist. Instead of his tooth getting infected and his arm getting frostbitten by Shimo, I thought he was going to suffer losing his tooth and hurting his arm when fighting Scar King. Scar King beating down Kong would effectively show just how much of a dangerous monster Scar King is, like when Thanos beat down Hulk in Avengers Infinity War. Scar King would have then locked Kong up, but Zuko would have then released him and helped him escape, and maybe then during the escape Scar King could have brought out Shimo to try and stop Kong by first freezing him, then trying to freeze his escape route. That would then explain why it took so long for Scar King to go after Kong and he could only send a few of his red stripes, because first he had to get his ape slaves to melt and chisel away all the ice from Shimo that's blocking their way out. Point number 21, lucky that Project Powerhouse have received enough funding to at least make the Power Fist. Lucky that it was stored at the easily accessible Outpost 1. Lucky it hadn't been destroyed when Scar King and his Red Stripes attacked the outpost. Lucky that no flying monster decided to have a go at Trapper as he flew to and from the outpost. Lucky that part of the Power Fist design was it would include healing injections, and lucky that they were either already ready to go or easily fillable by Trapper when he found the Power Fist. Kong's one really lucky ape. Point number 22, so according to Godzilla x Kong director Adam Wingard in the Godzilla x Kong art book, this Mothra that Gia summons is the OG Mothra, mother to the Mothra that we see in Godzilla King of the Monsters and also who laid the second Mothra egg we see at the end of that film. This, however, contradicts what Mike Doherty, director of Godzilla King of the Monsters, said on Twitter that it was actually the Mothra we saw in Godzilla King of the Monsters who went and laid the egg that we see at the end of the film. So it's up to you to decide whether it was the OG Mothra or the King of the Monsters Mothra who laid the egg, and also to decide which actually came first, the Mothra or the egg. Point number 23, so Egypt's tourism is either going to tank because who wants to go see destroyed pyramids, or it's going to explode because people might want to go see the pyramids that were destroyed in a giant monster fight. Point number 24, pocket sand. Point number 25, I would expect a suplex from Kong, but a suplex from Godzilla? Hell fucking yeah. Point number 26, Scar King wrapping his whip slash around a building and being able to pull a chunk of it off to swing around. Is that really how physics works? Point number 27, see, this is why you don't put your ice monster controlling crystal at the end of a spine that you swing at your enemies. I think Scar King should have kept the whip as a weapon, but just had the crystal kept on himself at all times like on a belt or something. Scar King, you dumb dirty ape. Point number 28, did Scar King dodging Godzilla's beam for some reason require him to let go of the crystal? What the hell? Point number 29, while normally I would be like, oh yeah Shimo, that's smart, just keep firing your ice beam into the Power Fist blocking it, don't alter your aim to hit the areas on Kong isn't covering, like how bad guys will only shoot at Wonder Woman or Captain America's shield. I think actually in this instance it makes sense because we know Shimo is only doing this because Scar King will hurt her if she doesn't, but it doesn't mean she has to go all out on doing exactly what he wants, so I see this as just her doing the bare minimum to make sure she doesn't get hurt again, but also giving Kong a fighting chance. Point number 30, when Godzilla returns to Rome to go back to sleep in the Colosseum, in the novelization, Hampton actually wonders if Godzilla has chosen this to be his new place to sleep because it reminds him of the temple from Godzilla King of the Monsters. To round all this off, my most disliked part of the movie goes to how the dialogue towards the end of the film just turned into exposition and overly explaining what's happening directly to the audience. And my most liked part of the movie goes to the fact between Godzilla and Kong in Egypt, with Kong trying to get Godzilla to stop and pulling this face, to Godzilla suplexing Kong, and with Mothra showing up and telling her husband to just make nice with the big monkey. Thank you all for watching Triple S Breakdowns. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, don't forget to subscribe, and why not leave a comment below with your feedback and anything that I missed but you noticed. I would love to hear from you all. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.